Oh, there's been some confusion over which monster manual I meant for the Basilisk in the last video. I guess we better talk about that. But first, hello, my name is Garvin and I read things that sputter about them on the internet for your entertainment. Today, we're returning back to the Basilisk to cover a few things we didn't touch on in the first video, so let's address those and turn to. Quick note on my sources, I'm using a lot of the same sources I used in the first video. Everything will be listed in the description, of course. Thank you. I'm going to start with something and tell you to take this with a big grain of sand. So this comes to me from Brereton's Phantasmagoria, and the book says it got this from another source, but it doesn't list the source, and I haven't been able to find anything about this anywhere. Brereton's Phantasmagoria says there are 3 different types of basilisks. The first type can only come from a yolkless egg laid by a 7-year-old rooster hatched by a toad, as long as all of this occurs during the days of Cyrus, which is an old way of saying the dog days of summer, traditionally the hottest, most uncomfortable part of summer in the northern hemisphere. Historically, that's the period right after the heliacal rising of the star Sirius. Now, you might be asking, what the heck is a heliacal rising? That's when a star or a planet becomes visible above the eastern horizon at dawn, in a brief moment just before sunrise, thus becoming a morning star, if you will. This occurs annually, and these risings mark the time when a star or planet becomes visible again in the night sky after having set with the sun at the western horizon in the previous sunset. Before this, the stars and planets are viewable in the sky, but only during the daytime, and thus are obscured by sunlight. And wow, that was a lot of star stuff in my Mythical Creature video. Where was I? Right, different type of basilisk. Let's get it back on track. This type of basilisk, which is not named in Brereton's Phantasmagoria, is the type that kills with its mere presence, like Pliny and other Roman writers mentioned, and its poison is described as burning anything that gets too close. The next type is called a golden basilisk, and it has 3 eyes. The third eye is the lethal one, and what it lacks in elaborate origins, it makes up for in deadliness, because not only does the gaze of its third eye kill anything it sees, but it's even able to burst apart rocks just by looking at them. And then there's the sanguineous basilisk, which has a sting that causes the flesh to fall off your bones. And I'm going to be honest, I could see a necromancer keeping that kind of basilisk around as a pet, because instant skeleton minion. Just grab anyone you find annoying, toss them at your basilisk, let the basilisk do its job, boom! Skeleton. What is there to hate if you're a necromancer on this? Now, getting back to the monster here, all of these basilisks would die of fright if they saw themselves in a mirror, which makes hanging around other basilisks kind of problematic for them, I think. They must be very solitary creatures. And they can, of course, all be slain by weasels, as long as weasels eat rue, that plant that is immune to basilisk poison, before the fight. So the biggest difference between all 3 of these things is how exactly they kill you. Now, perhaps more obscure, but much better documented, is the Amphictyon basilisk, which comes to us from the book Fictitious and Symbolic Creatures in Art, with special reference to their use in British heraldry, by John Vinicombe. This creature looks a lot like a classic cockatrice, which we did discuss in the first video, but this creature has a second head on its tail, traditionally a snake head, and it is regarded as super poisonous, just like all basilisks, really. This type of basilisk did show up in a certain anime, but I'm going to save that for later, so just remember that for now. Going forward, there was a medieval writer named Theophilus Presbyter who wrote on how some people figured out how to mass-produce basilisks. Why would anyone want to mass-produce something this horrific? Well, to make money.
Of course!
So the procedure goes a little like this. First, you're going to build a stone-lined structure covered with earth. This is important. Make sure that the bottom is a nice smooth floor with no cracks. No soil should be accessible through the floor or through the bottom parts of the wall. Trust me, this is super important. You leave 2 small openings on the top to let in light. Place a pair of roosters. Both should be over 12 years old. Give them plenty of food and water. It'll be warm, they'll be well fed, so they'll grow fat and bored, and they will get to know each other. Biblically. And I now realize you have to know a bit about the King James Bible for that joke to work, so what I'm saying is the 2 roosters will bang. This, according to our sources, will lead to eggs. And I went into why they believe that in the last video, so I'm just going to refer you back to the first video. It's linked in the description below. Once that's done, you can go ahead and open up the structure, take out the roosters, and place in toads who will sit on the eggs. I feel that's incredibly unlikely to happen, but let's just roll with this for the sake of the video. When the eggs hatch, you will first get what appear to be baby chickens, but around day 7, they'll start to grow snake tails. And if your stone floor has any cracks large enough to wriggle through, they will go through there, escape, and emerge months or years later, have full-grown monster basilisks and start killing everything around them. So really, the floor and the walls, like I mentioned, really important you do a good job on those, right? Now, these babies aren't poisonous yet, so what you do next is you gather them up into bronze vessels with really narrow openings, too narrow for them to escape out of, and then you place a lid on the vessel. Bury the vessel. Now, it's said that the baby basilisk will be nourished by the fine earth coming in through the holes, and to be honest, we are already so deep into Fantasyland that I'm just shrugging this off and going with it. You leave them buried in the earth for 6 months. You dig up the vessel very carefully and do not open it. You may be tempted, but if you open this vessel, you will die. Leave it closed. Instead, place the vessel into a fire and burn the basilisk alive? Wow.
Well, now that is some fucked up shit.
Yeah, you said it. Just in case anyone needs to hear this, do not burn animals alive, even really dangerous ones. Just leave dangerous animals alone. This channel does not condone animal cruelty. Burning anything alive is cruel. Just gotta put that down for the record. Anyways, getting back to the medieval weird recipe we're looking at here. Once the vessels have cooled down from your brutal execution of little unnatural monsters that you are responsible for creating, you take out the bodies and grind them down to a powder. And then you need to find a red-headed man. Not a woman, a man, and you need to bleed him. You will cake his blood, and you will create a mixture that is 2 parts ground up basilisk and 1 part human blood, because this wasn't weird or creepy enough without the human blood. You will mix this together in a clean container with a bit of sharp vinegar. Why? I don't know. I don't know why the vinegar, to keep it fresh maybe? This is well beyond me at this point. You will take thin sheets of red copper, coat the copper with this mixture, and then throw the sheets of copper into a fire, and when they are white hot, you will quench them in a bucket filled with the cursed mixture of basilisk ass and blood that you have made. Leave the copper there, and it basically turns copper to gold. And I gotta be honest, with the sheer amount of effort you're putting into this, I feel like digging up gold would just be less work. So now that I've horrified you with just how screwed up medieval alchemy could be, let's talk about basilisk in modern culture. Before I begin, we're not going to go too in-depth to any of the creators or the creations here. Just consider this a brief overview of the high points. If people are interested, I can go into greater depth later. The basilisk doesn't seem as widespread as dragons or unicorns, but it's not entirely absent. For the most part, its symbolism has been stripped away, though. Although, in Harry Potter, the basilisk does remain a symbol of evil, as it is a creature sealed away by Salazar Slytherin, the founder of House Slytherin, who are basically House evil bad guys in the story. In the novel and the movie Chamber of Secrets, the basilisk is unleashed by a remnant of Voldemort to hunt and kill students based on whether or not all of their ancestors were magic users or not. If you have one ancestor who's not a wizard or a witch, that giant snake is coming for you. This basilisk is a serpent, as I just mentioned, a giant one instead of the smaller sizes reported by Pliny, and the story introduces the idea of the Phoenix as the natural enemy of the basilisk, which kind of ignores the mythology, so there's no weasel versus giant snake fight here, which is too bad, because that image would be hilarious. There's also the sci-fi original movie Basilisk the Serpent King, where archaeologists dig up a giant stone basilisk only for it to come to life and rampage through a museum eating people. According to the reviews, it's not great, but it's a sci-fi original movie, so you really shouldn't be expecting anything but silly cheesiness. Don't get me wrong, I thought Sharknado was hilarious, but it was a silly, cheesy movie. There's also an anime named Basilisk, but it doesn't have the mythical creature in it, being an anime about the battle between 2 rival ninja clans, and the creature does show up in Delicious in Dungeon, using the 2-headed version I mentioned earlier, where the snake head is the actual head of the creature, and the chicken part is more of a mimicking tail, which is an interesting take on the creature. I kind of like that, honestly. I'm not going to get into fantasy or science fiction novels when it comes to the Basilisk because I haven't really had the time to do an exhaustive search, and I feel more comfortable tackling each book on its own. So I am going to talk a little bit about RPGs that have Basilisk in them, not video games. I feel like video games are better covered by other YouTube channels. So let's just take a brief look at some of the more popular tabletop RPG Basilisk out there. And if you'd like a video solely focused on one of these versions, just let me know in the comments. So we're going to start with Palladium Fantasy, because that's where I started. And there, the Basilisk is a type of dragon, and you can find it in the Gods and Dragon book. It's smaller than other dragons and wingless, but it does have the ability to turn you to stone with a gaze attack. It's known for its wickedness and lust for power and treasure, and it likes to use manipulation to set itself up as a power behind a throne or another face character. Unlike many other games, the Basilisk in Palladium Fantasy is an intelligent creature, so it's capable of reason and planning, and it can be negotiated with. It can also be a lot more dangerous than, say, the Dungeons and Dragons Basilisk, which is a multi-legged lizard that's able to turn you into stone with a gaze attack. Now, originally in earlier editions, only the young of the Basilisk could eat stone, and the adults had to eat flesh like other living creatures, but 5th edition now has adult Basilisk eating stone. In the game, it's considered a lazy, sluggish beast that uses its gaze attack to hunt, and it's not an intelligent creature. It's not sapient. As a quick aside, the Basilisk also shows up in the Magic the Gathering card game. Of course, it's fair to ask, what doesn't show up in Magic the Gathering these days, right? It's a multi-legged lizard-like creature in the card game, and it's usually a green summons with the ability to remove other summon monsters from the board really quickly. Interesting enough, while I was doing some research, I found an artifact called the Basilisk Collar, which gives whatever's equipped with that artifact the ability to destroy a monster just by doing damage to it, even if that damage doesn't match that creature's HP. It also gives the ability Lifelink. I did some research on that, and I think, from what I understand, that the controller of that monster gets additional life for any damage the equipped monster deals out to another target, which sounds pretty nice, but the last time I played Magic the Gathering was decades ago, so I don't want to make any definitive statements. If you played Magic and you know this card, let me know if I have this wrong, and let me know what you think of this card. But let's step away from Hasbro products and talk about other RPGs. In the Shadowrun and Earth Dawn systems, there are Basilisks. Just as an aside, if you've never heard of Shadowrun or Earth Dawn, please let me know in the comments. I don't talk a lot about tabletop RPGs in this channel, but those are two games I'd be happy to go in depth. Getting back to the Basilisk. In both of these systems, they went with the Basilisk as a kind of lizard. Now, in Shadowrun, it's an awakened creature, which means it's a magical species that only appeared with the return of magic. In Earth Dawn, it's a kind of lizard with a rooster-like comb structure on its head. Either way, in both versions, they're basically animals with magical powers revolving around petrifying people. Savage Worlds also has a Basilisk, and its version is a serpent, and I found it in the Fantasy Companion book I have, but I might be a couple editions behind. I haven't been paying attention to Savage World. But this version, unlike the others, has super poisonous blood, and I thought that was a nice innovation. In Pathfinder, basilisks are serpents, and there's a type of basilisk called the Royal Basilisk, and it's able to produce a corrosive vapor that eats away at everything around it. They're called royal basilisks because they like to wear metal crowns. Some of them they shape and make themselves, and others they just stole from tool-using species. There's also the Dracolis, which is a hybrid of basilisks and chromantic dragons. For those of you who don't know, the chromantic dragons are the ones that are colors instead of metals. So red, black, green, white, blue. Those are the chromantic dragons. They're generally evil, and they're not nice to hang around. In this case, apparently they will get romantic with a basilisk. The Dracolis looks more like a D&D basilisk in that they have 8 legs, but they're more draconic in appearance, and they also have wings, which I think would make the Palladium Fantasy basilisk rather jealous since it's a wingless dragon. And it's on that particularly irreverent note that I'm going to stop this week's video. I hope you found it informative, or at least entertaining. And if you did, please leave a like, a comment, or consider subscribing, as all of that helps me in my eternal battle with the Dread Lord algorithm. Terror be on his name. You can also support my battle with the Dread Lord by joining the Everwise at my Patreon, where $1 a month gets you a vote on upcoming content, or you could just buy a coffee. There's a link to that in the description below as well. Speaking of my supporters, I would like to give a special thank you to Big Steve, and Zangetterex, my biggest supporters. Next week, a lot of people have been looking forward to this, and it is my country's birthday coming up, so let me give you a present, folks. Next week, we're looking at the official history of the Techno-Mages from Babylon 5. I hope you'll join me, but until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, keep reading!